All right, welcome everybody. This is the weekly live stream that we do, co-hosted by my good buddies. We've got Brian White from Future Oza. You got Nick Gibbs from Investing Against the Grain. And today, what we're going to do is talk about all the things that have just dropped literally in the last 2 days. These are new details about the RoboTaxi launch. We've got a new Optimus drop. Let's start with that. This is the video that they just, I'm going to take out the music here. Tesla dropped this late last night, showing you that this is Optimus. It looks like it's still the Gen 2, by the way. But if you look in the background, it looks like that there is a Gen 2 that has the new hands. Here is Optimus able to do a variety of tasks, tearing a paper towel from the roll. That is crazy. Picking up a spoon, stirring the pot. That's great. What is it? Is it 2 times? So this is sped up twice. So it's not yet quite human speed. Pick up the Model X 4-link. So this might show you that it could actually be a job because it's the Model X line. Open the cabinet. Press a button. Do you see that? That was great to open the microwave. Now, what's cool about what they're showing you is it's done by a single neural net. A single neural net that's learned all of these tasks. And they learned it from these videos. So just by first-person video view feed from a camera, just showing it that it knows what to do. And that was the big deal. We'll go through what all the things that the different folks said, but yeah, what do you guys think about that video? That was pretty impressive, eh?
Overdue. We were waiting to see something new. We know Tesla doesn't want to reveal what they don't have to because they're at a good point in terms of recruiting and development. And every time they show a video, crazy people like us tear it apart frame by frame to see what they're up to, and they need to hold something back.
Yeah, it's exciting. This is, I think what's most impressive, Herbert, is that it seems like it's moving in a very natural way. And this is the Gen 2, as you mentioned. But even with that, it seems like it's starting to move very natural. So I can only imagine what this next generation is gonna look like and how it's gonna move. Can I just real quick, not to go completely off topic, but just for anyone who's live and are wondering what the hell just happened in the stock market of Tesla, it's the 20-year Treasury auction that just happened. We didn't have enough buyers for the 20-year debt, so yields went up, which is what happened, supply demand, and that spooked the entire market. So the irony is that this happened right when the government's trying to go through a reconciliation bill, and at the same time, Jerome Powell hasn't cut rates, and today's going to wait. So it's just funny timing. But in case you're wondering, this isn't a Tesla specific thing. This is a market thing. But back to the discussion.
Yeah. So I'm trying to I took a screenshot of that. So I'll get back to the stock market shortly. But, oh, here it is. Since I already have it, let's go ahead and just showcase it. Yeah. Here we go. Yeah. So if you're asking about the stock market, stock right now, Tesla stock, it was going along quite fine, 345, and then it fell by about, what is it, $8, $7? And then you're saying that that's the reason. It's a U.S.
Correct. Yeah, it's the whole market. The whole market
fell. Okay. I mean, thank you for explaining that. People were asking about that on the comments section here. So this drop by Tesla, though, right? So it is about time, like you said. And I'm going to be doing a live stream with Dr. Scott Walter right after this show ends. And he's been telling me a few things. So number one, he's very impressed with this demo, saying that and the dancing demo too, right? The dancing demo specifically, because like you said, Nick, it's like the whole body is orchestrated and is moving so naturally. And so you just show it a video, and this is the breakthrough that they're talking about, Milan and other Tesla AI team members. The breakthrough was just taking that one video of seeing it from a first person, and the bot knows how to replicate that using the whole body. And they took a lot of months. It took them over 4 months from January to now to build the sim to real platform, and then optimizing it for that specific bot. Now they've got it, it could be a lot faster now to add additional tasks. And that's why they showed you this video. They can show you, oh, look at all these tasks.
Herbert, do we know? Do you remember? Was it dancing? Was that Gen 2?
Yeah, it was also a Gen 2, but what Scott Walter's calling it is these
Two and a
these
half?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because some of them you'll see that the hands the hands are a little bit like they'll, and some of them, I think Scott has a video of a couple bots sitting in the back where the hands are actually the new version of the hands.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, he also walked and showed the video. Remember that one shot that they did at the earnings call where they showed you the bot factory and you had some bots there? He says, again, those are like, let's call it bot 2.5 because they're not this bot Gen 2, but you can see that they are on their way to, but they're not showing you bot Gen 3s, but he's basically saying. So the dancing video, though, made him realize that by calculating, by looking at it, he says that the dancing video shows him that it's now moving at the speed it needs to move to be equal to a human, and that he now thinks that it can walk 3 miles per hour, not just 1.5, which is what he had calculated in other videos that Tesla dropped. So things are moving fast. This is a big deal.
Yeah, but what does Dr. Scott know about robots?
Something that I found very interesting that ties into what Elon was talking about yesterday during the David Faber interview.
Yeah.
Was this concept of learning through training with the exoskeleton that leads into training just with first person camera view, which will then lead into a third party camera view. Yes. And I think this is one of those like little nuances that if you haven't been following the Tesla story, that I don't think people would pick up on, but it gives, once again, the edge to Tesla in my opinion, in this robotics, humanoid robotics arena. It gives the edge to Tesla because learning through FSD, they learned a lot. With FSD, that they trained FSD from that first human point of view, right? They're taking the vehicles and they're using the cameras that are there and they're taking that in, right? They don't necessarily have the issue with joints and how they move, so they didn't have to go through an exoskeleton phase. Right now, the humanoid, what we saw there is that all that was trained based on essentially a camera on someone's head. So that first person view, which is how we're familiar with the vehicles training, right? Through their own cameras, their own first person view. But Tesla with China iterated to a third camera point of view where they were able to train, which is very interesting because that's what Elon was alluding to, that eventually the next iteration for the humanoids is to be able to just watch a YouTube video. That's how they describe the China version getting created. And so it's just very interesting. I think there's a lot of things that FSD, while it's a whole different domain as far as, not having limbs and having wheels and steering wheel and pedals, etc. I think a lot of the learnings are very transferable, and they're seeing what steps they need to take to get to, at least a high degree of success. So it was just something that I observed.
Yeah, I asked Scott Walter the question, does this mean, so Tesla just showed you the sim to real platform, right? Taking simulation, right? And then making it one shot after they trained it through video in simulation, can it then do the task in real world? And it does. If that's the case, then can't NVIDIA, who has a sim to real platform, can't other companies just do sim to real? And does it matter that you have thousands and, Tesla will have 10,000 robots, but others only have 1,000? Does it matter that you have real world video of what the bot sees? And it's going to be everything. And so you need it all, is what he's saying. Yes, this sets you up to be able to do these first tasks. Now, what you said makes a lot of sense. And I'm going to play a video, what Elon did say at that David Faber video here, where what you said was that, right? You first do sim to real and you train it these tasks from your first person view. Then eventually they'll feed it YouTube videos to do the third person view. But these are just to prime the pump. What you really want to do is have the bots learn on their own, just like a baby would. And Elon talks about how you just let it play by itself, right? And he gave the example of putting the blocks into that toy where, the circle blocks go into the circle and the star blocks go into the star. And it needs to learn to do these tasks. So this is the next stage, and that's why more bots matter and more videos matter. We can listen to this video at this point here.
You said recently tens of billions of robots, but that's decades away.
At least 1 decade away.
It's got to be more than that.
It's going to grow very fast.
Why do you think that?
I think humanoid robots will be the biggest product ever. The demand will be insatiable.
You said that
everyone's going to want one. It's like basically who wouldn't want their own personal C-3PO R2-D2?
No,
everyone's going to want one.
You've said that, and your goal. You've also said is to produce 1 million robots. I think by 2030. That's what I had you on the record as saying.
I think that's a reasonable target.
And then start towards sustainable abundance, which you can get into. But I wonder. We've been talking about autonomous and how long it takes to train the automobile to be able to be the equivalent of or exceed human capabilities. But what about these robots? To the extent that how much training are they going to need to actually be able to do various different types of tasks? Isn't that something that's going to take a long time? Yeah.
It's going to take a lot of compute resources, and it'll take time. I think there's certain threshold breakthroughs that we think we can achieve, where if Optimus can watch videos, YouTube videos or how-to videos or whatever, and based on that video, just like a human can, learn how to do that thing, then you really have task extensibility that is dramatic. Because then it can learn anything very quickly. So I think we'll get there in the next.
We're not there yet, though.
We're not there yet.
You're relying on a significant uptick in terms of learning and training.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm calling it a very significant threshold. Would be the ability to learn from watching a video. Just so
right.
But at the point
as opposed to watching a human, right? Which is or having a human sort of train it right now with a task.
I mean. Right now, we're training Optimus to do like primitive tasks where a human in a kind of what's called a mocap suit is and sort of cameras on the head is moving in the way that the robot would move to say pick up an object or open a door or the basic tasks, throw a ball, dance, and we need to. I think that's needed to sort of bootstrap the intelligence so you can have the basic functions. Then where I think it gets very interesting and very much like humans is that you want the robot to self-play. Right. So you say, how does a child learn? Well, a child has toys, and a child plays with the toys, plays with the blocks, at some point figures out how to put the triangle in the triangle hole and the circle in the circle hole. By doing it over and over again, and this self-play. Once you have a lot of robots, you can do this self-play, which is that you just put the robot in a room with toys, and have the robot literally have the robot play with toys,
and it will learn.
Yeah. And you have to have a reward function. Say like, okay, the goal of the robot is to put that classic child's toy. You put the circle in the circle hole, the square in the square hole, triangle in the triangle hole, and keep doing it until it works. And the reward function is succeeding.
And there are no advances needed to accomplish that now? I mean, no advances in AI or just compute and things of that nature that can happen?
There are some advances needed, but I don't think these are insurmountable. I think we can solve these things in the next few years.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, it's more so about what we've already been talking about. Let me take a different. Let me tack away from that for a second to go back to something you were saying earlier, Herbert. And it ties back to this. You were mentioning that can't anybody just do this with NVIDIA and sim to real world, et cetera? No, I think that's a very and I don't know if you were implying that or if you were just putting the question out there, but I think that's a very simple way of looking at it. That would be no different than saying, hey, can't GM just make an EV profitable? It's like, no,
It sounds
it's
so
not that
easy.
easy. Yeah.
But it sounds easy, Nick.
Exactly. So, so it's like, okay, well, why can't they? Like, what's the missing piece? Especially when you look at something like a vehicle, which is arguably a lot simpler, right? Because I could take the vehicle, it's physical, I can break it apart, I can see what decisions were made and how they put it together. With a humanoid, in this case, it's not just the physical, right? It's literally how we're training the brain. And while people may have an idea of certain approaches, there's a lot of nuance and intellectual property internally of how to get to certain outcomes, how to create certain breakthroughs, as Elon was saying, that others aren't going to have. And if you go down the wrong approach or the wrong avenue, which, just like with autonomy, we'll find out LiDAR, yes or no. I think this will be decided really quickly here in next year. If you go down the wrong route, then that could be the end of your company. So I don't think just because you can get the hardware and just because you have an idea of what type of training you can do to solve certain problems, it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to do it, right? Even just looking at a Figure and a Tesla, right? Figure has a whole different approach on just dexterity and hand movements and how we're going to move the fingers. Tesla has a whole different approach, right? And so the software behind that, how does that affect it? The models they use, the way they train, it all starts to look a lot different. So yes, everyone can buy NVIDIA chips. Yes, everyone can have the AutoCAD, just use a software description, the AutoCAD to be able to train, but it doesn't mean everybody's going to be able to be a world-class architect.
Yeah, like you were saying with the electric car analogy, how hard could it be? And the answer is it's not one problem, it is a series of problems. The EV one was discontinued because they said the batteries necessary didn't exist. They did. GM just didn't know that they did. They didn't understand that the batteries had gotten better. And then, the efficiency, all these little steps. And the reality is, my hat is off to all the early adopters of the EVs. The first Model S's were really fantastic for the time, for what they were. A lot of them are still on the road, but my goodness, were they just getting things figured out. And if you look at even the difference between the Model Y that I have and the new one, I don't understand where all the efficiencies came from. I'm just glad that they're there, because the other day a viewer, Rob Ford, was saying that he went out for a 300-mile drive, got 205 watt hours per mile in a Model Y, which is insane. So on these early bots, we've seen some fantastic demos from other companies, but they are, like we were saying, smoke and mirrors. When I was at the Shanghai Auto Show, somebody had their little robot there, and it was walking around in public and doing its thing. But of course, there was a man standing there with a controller. He's driving a robot is what he's doing. He's giving it predetermined commands. It has no brain.
All the BYD Atlas demos were actually a demo of a person with a joystick, by the way, and or pre-coded everything. But yeah, the one point that I think lends a little bit to what you're saying, which is that, sim to real, yes, it sounds like others can copy simulation to real platform, but is that if you look at the posts by, at least I've got 7 posts from the 7 different Tesla AI team members, and they're all talking about a breakthrough. This was a breakthrough to them to achieve this one shot sim to real, just by looking at the first person view, and then all these tasks come out of it. And if they call that a breakthrough, that means that they've been working really hard. They finally got something. That's maybe lends to what you're saying, that it's not so easy to just copy it from others. Eventually they will. But the point, though, is that the speed of which now you can now train all these different tasks. And then what we don't know from that video is the quality of success. Like, they don't tell us, okay, yeah, we see this. We see them, grabbing the garbage and putting it into a garbage can. But how many times how can they do that and do it correctly? And then here, right, is the dirt have to be in a certain location, or does it actually doesn't matter? Like if you put it in the corner of the, how many times do they make a mistake, and can it recover from a mistake? So they don't tell you that, but what they've just shown you is that it can do these tasks now.
That's some low quality stirring, I would point out.
They trained it from videos of you, Brian.
No,
stirring food.
I stir like a master.
Yeah.
Herbert, I swear I'm not just trying to push back on the things you say.
Okay,
but
no problem. Yeah.
You said, there's a breakthrough and others maybe can't do it, but eventually they will be able to.
Mm-hmm.
I would push back on that because, eventually others will be able to land rockets. Eventually others will be able to catch them and reuse them.
Sure.
Eventually we'll see other vehicles with an equivalent FSD-like system in them. And now eventually we'll see other people figure these things out. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, it's obviously the speed of innovation is what matters, and that's why we invest in Tesla. Just the other thing that dropped this morning is Figure. We have to play that. This just honestly just was this morning, so that's why we got to do this. Last night, the CEO of Figure, Brett Adcock, posted this. He said, in 2025, this year, Figure is focused on deploying autonomous humanoids into the real world. They've got their partnership with BMW. That means a massive push on AI, autonomy, integration, and daily execution. And then he said, we recently hit a major progress point, their breakthrough. More to share in the morning. Well, this morning they shared this video here. So Figure completed a 20-hour run of back-to-back shifts on the BMW X3 production line. So actually in the production line, actually already working. We've been running 10-hour shifts for several weeks now, and as far as we know, Figure and BMW are the first in the world to do this with humanoid robots. This is the video they dropped, and they sped it up. I don't think they told us how fast.
How do you know they sped it up?
Yeah, maybe they didn't. Yeah, sure. Eventually, this could be the speed, no doubt about it. But yeah, so that the point is, this is the questions we don't know the answers to. Is how long can these bots run in a day? What's their uptime? And, and how long will their actuators last in months? Maybe they break down.
That's the real thing. Are the actuators consumable pieces? And if so, are they easy enough to swap out? I don't remember the number. I want to say it's 40,000 hours is the industrial rating. Maybe it's 20,000 hours. But even still, when I was in Mexico, there was a gal who at this restaurant whose job all day it is to make little tortillas, little corn tortillas. And she makes them very quickly all day. She serves their restaurant and other restaurants buy from her. And I asked my buddy, how many of those do you think she's made in her life? And so he asked her how many she makes a day. And it's 20 kilograms of cornmeal that she goes through. So we did the math and figured that in her 35 years of making tortillas, she's probably made 17 million of them. Actuators wear out. You will not get 17 million tortillas from an actuator. And if you're making that many, a humanoid is the wrong tool for the job, I would argue. But yeah, we need to know what the actual lifespan is.
Was this a taco restaurant that had one called the Tarantula?
No, but Mexico City is very big. This is one that was actually, it's weirdly open 24 hours. So it was kind of close to where I was staying. But no, I did see tarantulas for sale. I would have taken a picture, but no pictures allowed.
All right. The other advancement that we saw with Tesla, they're advancing their sim to real. They're going to be making thousands of bots this year. They dropped this, which can do a bunch of tasks. But they also showed yesterday, first of all, Elon said this is the biggest product ever, is this hand. I think this is the next gen Optimus hand. So when they had Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy visit Giga Texas, they showed a video. And in that video, they showed the hand moving around. So there's a closer look at that hand. That's there you go. Do you see that?
I think we'll achieve real human behavior when the robot can finally reach out and just say, pull my finger.
Yeah, that's boy. Brian will never want you to be the one because he'll just make it like you're gonna teach her how to do the thumb trick or something.
No, Brian's gonna be the one with the third-party camera, being like, "This is what you do after."
Oh no.
No. But so they're just showing you the hands is where it matters, but this is the 22-degree freedom of hands. I think there's another company that came out with their version of a 22-degree freedom of hand, but this is another area where Tesla's far ahead.
And we know how to make reliable electric motors. That technology is no secret. You just use extremely robust everything. You over engineer it. If you look at, there are electric motors that have run continuously for tens of years, dozens of years. Um, if you look at old light bulbs, some of them were made to last 100 years. We know how to do it. It just costs more. And then you come into the question of how much space are we losing to overbuild? There's a real balancing act. And I trust between the simulations that they're able to run and the engineer and the caliber of engineers that they have, I'm confident they'll find the right balance.
All right. So, any last comments about the Optimus Bot demo? That is the breaking happened late last night.
None for me.
Yeah, no, it's exciting to see more of this come out.
You did good work, Herbert.
Yeah,
You did wonderful work, Herbert.
Kidding. Let's talk about the CNBC interview that Elon did. He did 2 interviews yesterday. One in the morning with the Qatar Economic Forum, and then he did another one in the afternoon with CNBC, David Faber. With the Economic Forum, he talked about that he, as a CEO, is going to stay at the company for 5 years unless he dies. He talked about that he just wants 25% voting control, which he said before. It's less about the compensation. And he confirmed RoboTaxi. So yesterday at the David Faber, here's a good list here of the things that he talked about. Oops, am I showing the wrong image here? Sorry. Why don't you guys fade this out?
On the RoboTaxi thing, we learned some exciting stuff. And I know there are people who are deeply cynical about it. Well, it's only going to be 10 cars. It's not going to be a cybercab on day one, and it's geofenced. But I would argue that none of those are downsides. I want them to take small steps. I want them to roll it out gradually. Because there will be problems. There will be some issue that's very small. And if you take a very, very small issue and multiply it by 1,000, it can become critical. It can become a real bottleneck that just jams up the entire thing. And if it's only 10 cars and they're hand selected riders, if there's a substantial delay, like let's say they have to literally shut down all the cars for 10 minutes and then restart them, you can explain that to 10 riders, probably 5 riders because of utilization, and it not be an issue. But if you got 1,000 cars out there and had to explain to 500 people why they're not in motion, it would be front page news. Let's prevent that if we can, and I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, so this is what we learned. So it's still on schedule. They're gonna launch it next month in June. They didn't give you a date. They've said that they've been testing it already with thousands of cars 24/7. We've been seeing these in Austin, and virtually no interventions. And it's going to take it deliberately slow. Start with 10 cars, and he said maybe 20, 30, 40, and rapidly scale to 1,000 cars in just a few months if the rides are successful. He talked about expanding it to San Francisco and LA, then even added later in another interview that is going to be in San Antonio. He predicts that next year there'll be hundreds of thousands, if not over 1 million autonomous vehicle Teslas on the road. And then whatever. Yeah, what else did he say? So, this one.
No safety driver.
No safety driver.
That's a big one.
At the very beginning, a number of and geofenced. So it will be geofenced in certain parts of Austin because you only have 10, and then they're going to take it very careful. They're going to play in places where there's no intersections. And then a number of major automakers have reached out to license FSD, and we're happy to help. And he said that he expects more automakers to reach out even more once they keep proving it out that it works out. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that, guys?
All very exciting. I'm not sure. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
No, I was just gonna say, I feel like I appreciate, just to echo what you're saying, Brian, I appreciate the conservativeness that they're approaching this. I would rather them do this, just like you said. And I think they know how to do it. They were able to have an FSD rollout where essentially there's been 0 accidents, and I think that's pretty impressive. And I think they'll use the same type of, guardrails, if you will, to go into this next phase. And I'm honestly not worried about them launching it, about there being an accident caused by Tesla or anything like that, just because we've seen how cautious they can be. And yeah, I'm excited. I love that they reiterated that there's gonna be no one behind the wheel. I'm happy that they're starting with such low numbers, so that those are the expectations. Because again, if we, once we get to 20 cars, like, oh, Tesla doubled the amount of RoboTaxi they have. That's pretty cool. So I'm excited.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I think I guarantee you there will be an accident. 99% chance that there'll be an accident. Most likely caused by a human driver hitting the car, right? Maybe the taxi will happen. It just statistically, it's going to happen. So what you want to do though is branding at the very beginning. You want to be very careful. So that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
And it's first of all, these guys are rolling it out the same way that every other autonomous vehicle company has rolled it out. There's no difference. In fact,
yes,
the other companies. No, I know you were going to say the other companies actually did first have to have a safety driver in the vehicle, and then they slowly expanded to remote drivers, which is what Tesla's going to do. The first 10 will have a remote driver. Yeah.
What were you going to say, Nick? Who?
There's going to be no one in the driver's seat.
Right. At the very beginning. First day.
That's a very big difference.
Yeah.
Well, Tesla has been testing them with drivers in the driver's seat in California. Yeah. Internally, with employees using them.
That doesn't count, Brian. Everything I've been told is that there's still someone in the seat and it doesn't count. Tesla doesn't have real autonomy.
I do.
No, what they say is that Tesla has 0 paid RoboTaxi rides, and so don't talk to me. Okay.
Exactly. Until there's no one behind it.
If I've been taking RoboTaxi rides on my own for the last 3.5 months, but they're not considered to be RoboTaxi rides unless I paid somebody for it and it's commercial. Okay.
It doesn't matter unless you tip. Wait, what? That doesn't make sense.
So, in other words, just the tip. Got it.
Okay, stop. Okay, Jesus. What else? What else happened? So that was more information. More information about RoboTaxi was dropped. I mean, we were waiting for this, right? Some of these details. I mean, was there any detail we hadn't yet heard? We got the number of cars, no safety driver, remote driver, geofenced area, 10, 20, 30, 1,000. We got the cities that it's going to roll out in. We've seen the app. We know that it's been tested already by employees. I think at the very beginning, it's going to be invite only, because if you only have 10 cars, you can probably have like as only a set, instead of employees, maybe something else. It's not going to be like anybody, right? Not in the first week.
I have a question for Nick. So Nick, Waymo's approach is all middlemen. They're going to have to pay a markup on the car that they buy. They're going to have to pay to ship the car, to have it upfitted by Magna. They're going to have to pay Magna. They're going to have to pay NVIDIA. Pretend you've been hired to consult. And then you have to pay Uber. Oh my God, everybody wants to get their finger in the pie. Nick, you've been hired to consult. What do you tell them to do to make it so they don't just bleed cash?
To Waymo?
Yeah, to Waymo.
Oof.
Right? I don't know the answer either. There's too many middlemen. And Waymo's willing to lose money on this, but no one else is.
It would be one thing if they had a vision only approach, because then they could easily sell this to other OEMs, but they don't. It's a very hardware dependent, and you'd have to be in the design of the vehicles on the assembly lines. This is where I think was it Comma could be a company that eventually gets acquired, because they do have kind of a vision only approach, and there's not like crazy amounts of hardware required. But so I don't know. I really do think that Waymo's gonna fold up. I'm almost 99% convinced that they're gonna fold up, and it'll be fortunate and unfortunate because Waymo helped pave the road for the normalization of this in many ways, and you got to tip your hat to that. But I just don't see how they survive.
Well, that's not what some analysts are saying, Nick. They say that Uber, it's ridiculous because Uber is the only company that is a platform that customers know to go to do ride hail, and that they will have many autonomous vehicles options there. You can pick and choose, and that those autonomous vehicles will all charge the same price that Tesla does. There's nothing that Tesla will be able to offer that's separate, and that you need Uber because they're going to be the one platform that people go to. That's what
Is
they
this
say.
sarcasm?
I don't know.
This
I
was
don't know.
on a
I think
video.
it's mental illness.
This was a video yesterday from I can't remember what guy was interviewed in CNBC, and that's what he was saying. And we know
David Faber.
Not that guy. It was another
No?
CNBC talking head that was there.
Faber's a question asker, not an answer giver.
Yeah.
So no, the problem is how do you well, they'll just lower their prices. Great. That works if you're running 100 cars, maybe even 1,000 cars. But if you're competing and Tesla says, great, we're going to now expand from 1,000 to 10,000 or 100,000 cars. The problem is you can't subsidize that many rides. It's too many rides. And your solution, every part of it is more expensive. Your vehicles cost more to operate. They cost more to buy. They cost more to retrofit. They cost more to clean. Every part of it is a problem when it comes to cost competitiveness. And if the only thing you have going for you is, well, look at how many people have already downloaded our app. What I mentioned to Herbert on a show that's coming out probably tomorrow is that Tesla's already got at least 7 million people on the app, probably closer to 12 to 15 million people on the app. And if that's not enough, they'll just integrate it with X.
Yeah. Herbert, I don't think there's a issue here at all. Listen, all these analysts, I've yet to see or hear of any that are actually even worth their salt. I mean, we have yesterday Craig Irwin, the infamous bull who always said Tesla doesn't have anything Toyota doesn't have. Now he's a bull. He's a bull now. He was a bear. Yeah.
Flipped overnight.
Meanwhile, Gary and Ross have become the bears who were the bull. I mean, it's like this whole world's upside down with these analysts. They are noise, all of them, every single one of them. Sure, there's probably a handful of good ones, still noise. What is signal is what you do, your own research, your own experience when you go out there. and that's what I would lean on. Look, if the argument is Uber has an app that's on your phone, they have a lot of users, well then, how did Facebook come in and displace MySpace? Right. How did Instagram come in and be so disruptive that Facebook had to buy it? How is it that then Snapchat came in? How is it? I mean, like you just go on and on. How is it that SpaceX was able to exist when you had, NASA doing what they were doing and like they came from nothing? How is it that Tesla came in and created EVs and take over an impossible market in the auto industry and come in here and carve out their own niche and become the best-selling vehicle in the world 2 years in a row? How is that possible? If you had the loyalty to Toyota and Ford and GM, how is it possible? And you're telling me that a freaking app that takes me less than a second to download and is free, and actually it's not even that it's free, it's cash flow positive to me because it would cost me less to take a ride. You think that that's going to be the limiting factor? You think that's the friction point? I don't think so. Even then, you know how easy it could be for Tesla to create a deal with Apple to have the app automatically downloaded on people's phones? to integrate with the iPhone. I mean, like, there's all kinds of things they could do if that was really the big friction point, but it's not. Everyone can download an app. Everybody has 100 apps on their phone downloaded. Like, it is such a silly argument.
I'm with Nick on this one 100%. I keep the Uber app on my phone, even though I only end up using it, really intermittently and only when I'm traveling. It's no inconvenience. And and my loyalty to Uber is non-existent.
Zero. That's a good point.
Yeah, and even that, wait, real quick, sorry, last point. You both have Uber on your phone, right?
Mm-hmm. I've got
Do you both have Lyft on your phone? Look at that. There's two different ones. Okay. But you guys have used Uber Eats, right? Do you have DoorDash on your phone?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, do you have Resi on your phone? Do you have OpenTable on your phone? Like,
let's play this out. What's going to happen in Austin? So Austin, you've got Uber, you got Waymo in Austin, and Waymo partnered with Uber in Austin, but they don't need to. Waymo did not need to partner because they don't have a partnership with Uber in San Francisco and others. Apparently, let's give them 300 cars. I just asked Grok, and it said there are anywhere from 50 to 200 Waymo cars in Austin. You would use the Uber app, you download that, and then you'd ask for a ride. And every once in a while, they won't even tell you, by the way, and I don't think you can choose a RoboTaxi ride. A Waymo will show up. That's how they're doing it in Austin. That's what it is today. Now Tesla comes in and they launch their program, 10 cars, then 20, then 40, then 100, then maybe 1,000. What will happen? So, well, let's assume that. So right now, which is weird, I don't understand, but Waymo is charging the same price as Uber and Lyft is in the markets that they're in right now, like San Francisco. So if they charge the same amount that Uber and Lyft, will they do a price war, which they can afford? This is owned by Google. They'll match whatever Tesla decides to do. But what will happen and how long will this take? Do you think the consumers will just choose Tesla, or how long will it happen before, or they'll just coexist and they'll be fine?
I don't know. If there's there are tipping points, and it could be that. See, I think Uber will persist because there are people who are just too.
It's going to take a long time before
it's going to take a while
switch over.
To switch over, and the drivers will continue to be on Uber for as long as they can afford to. I don't have an answer to that.
I don't think there's several ways this could play out for Tesla, but I imagine that they're gonna hang out in Austin a little longer before they go to another city, because the whole point, okay, like the first launch, the 10 vehicles, 20 vehicles, that's going to be just about like, hey, can we do this without any issues for a week? Okay, great. Mm-hmm. Now maybe we add some more cars. And once they know, okay, we can do this, we went for a week without humans, no accidents or anything, minimal takeover from our command station.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then, okay, great. That box has been checked. But next box is, how do we scale? How do we deal when there's 30 cars, 50 cars, 100 cars? How do, like, the problems don't necessarily grow linearly, right? There's new problems that arise when you start to scale that maybe you wouldn't have foreseen before. So I think they're going to use Austin to deal with that. And I think as that grows, as you get more saturation of Tesla vehicles, of RoboTaxis in Austin, I think there becomes a pretty quick turning point where you see people, as long as they have access to it, where they will default to Tesla over Uber, because one, why I don't want to tip. I prefer to be in a car without a human, and I want to save money. Like, I think it's such a simple, like, it's not hard. It's really that simple. The only question is, can Tesla get enough saturation? And they will be able to. Waymo won't be able to keep up. I don't even think Uber will be able to keep up, not because Uber will have limited number of drivers, but because who's going to want to pay more? Who's going to, like, I don't know anyone who would prefer to be in a car with someone that they don't know versus not.
Weirdos.
Yeah, they have to have enough cars. So I think in San Francisco, in a year and a half, Uber or Waymo has won market share from Lyft and Uber. Most of it came from Lyft, so that now Waymo has beating Lyft. I think Lyft is at 15%, Waymo's at 15%, and I think the latest stats is saying that Waymo's now ahead of Lyft. So Lyft lost a lot of market share. Uber lost some too. They were at 65, 70. Now they're at 60% of market share. So basically it's still Uber, 60%. Then you've got a split between Waymo and Lyft. And this is with Waymo charging the same amount of price as the other two. And they don't have as many cars, right? So that's what's happening in San Francisco area. In fact, charge more apparently.
Right. I thought it was more like Uber Black, but you don't have to tip, which makes the result is that it's probably about the same as a regular Uber ride.
Gotcha. So in Austin, if Tesla comes in and undercuts the price, which they can certainly do, and I think that they will, if they're geofenced and they have 10 cars, that's the answer to why some people kept telling me, no, Tesla will charge the same price. And the reason they want to charge a high price is because they don't want to piss off customers. If you only have fit 10 cars, you don't want somebody ordering a Tesla and then it's not available. But if they geofenced it by a certain block, then you can charge a lower price, but just have less cars and have a less geography, then you can still match the demand that's in that space and then expand. So I think they'll charge less. And then or maybe they'll charge, like maybe you're right, they'll charge the same price, but then at some point they can easily turn it off and turn down, undercut the price. Then demand will skyrocket. So it'll be like, I think nothing will happen. The market will assume nothing's happened. And then as soon as they put in, and I don't know what the number is, let's say 2,000 cars. As soon as they put in 2,000 cars, which could happen by the end of this year, I think at that point, not only will Waymo no longer, I think they'll just keep funding it, right? So it's like they don't want to show that it got affected. So they'll just keep losing money. They're already losing money. And then Uber will start getting affected. And then at some point when they saturate it, then it's like, that market is dead for them.
I have a question for you guys. Do you think that we're going to have, or when do you think we'll know who are the first testers? And do you think there's going to be an event for this launch? And I guess just to add one more question there, do you think that this will coincide with an investor shareholder meeting and the unveil of the new vehicles?
So I don't think there's going to be an event. I'm increasingly convinced that with just 10 vehicles and none of them cybercabs, there's no reason to have an event. I don't think it's going to coincide with the shareholder meeting because we haven't seen the proxy yet. Until we see the proxy, we won't even know when the shareholder meeting is, and this will roll out before that, I think. And as for the lower cost vehicles, I do hope they have something for that, some kind of event. And I assume it would be in Texas, but it could very easily be California instead. So I don't know. What do you think, Herbert?
Yeah, we asked this question with Alexandra Mertz and she said exactly everything you just said, which is shareholder meeting is not yet announced. They have not dropped the proxy. The proxy will have to drop. It could take up to 4 weeks from now till then before they drop that. And then they have to give you 6 weeks after that before they schedule this shareholder meeting. So that's going to happen way past June at this point. I think the two are decoupled from each other at this point. Only, us Tesla shareholders were hoping that it was going to be timed perfectly, that the shareholder meeting was going to happen in June and we'd all come in and be able to do RoboTaxi rides. That isn't going to happen, decoupled. I agree with everything you said, Brian. It sounds like if you have only 10 cars, not cybercabs, why would you do an event? You want to keep this low key. It's still a test. And expand. But your comment about the low cost vehicles, that has to be an event. You got to make that an event because this is a massive new TAM addressing that's what the goal is for this more affordable vehicles, not just an extra trim, hopefully. And if that's the case, you need an event.
I would
seriously.
I would add to what you just said there, Herbert. If it's just a new trim, we don't need an event. If it's anything more exciting, we do.
But in order for them to do it, they needs to happen before the end of June, right? Because first half, what's the first half of 2025? End of June, right? So they have only literally a month, not literally, that's a stupid word, but 1 month and 10 days.
Yes. They could also say the new vehicle is if on June 30th, they said the new vehicles is it's done. We're going to announce it at an event in 2 weeks or whatever. I think that would still
That's okay.
satisfy people as being available.
How much notice do they have to give for the shareholder meeting?
I just told you.
6 weeks.
6 weeks after the proxy drops, and the proxy might not drop anywhere
Okay,
from now to 4 weeks from now.
Okay, so 6 weeks after the proxy. Okay. What I could see is I kind of have a feeling that they're holding off on the shareholder meeting until they can ramp up RoboTaxis in Austin so that people can come in and use it.
No, I think the only reason they're delaying the shareholder meeting is because it's a big deal. There's a special committee. There's a reason why Elon is doing 2 interviews in one day yesterday. He needs to get out before the proxy drops, because once the proxy drops, he can't go out and talk about anything anymore. It's got to be very careful what he says. He's going to say everything he can now, because when the proxy drops, you're going to need to have all these investors vote. And so he needs to come and do his, go around and, look good, spread the word of what Tesla is all about, what Tesla's going to accomplish. It's got to do that now. I think the reason why they delayed the shareholder meetings because something big there's a reason why there's a special committee. That special committee is working on some, and it sounds like it is Elon's compensation package. Maybe the new.
No.
Elon famously has a very big package.
Not because
look, you guys. I did want to mention that coming up at the top of the hour, there are 2 rival shows competing for your love and affection. Herbert is going to be doing a live stream with Dr. Scott Walter, and I will be off in my corner because I know what I've done. No, what I'm doing is answering questions and comments that have come in during this not so long hour about all the questions and concerns you have. Both are fascinating views. Join both of them at the same time and just crank it up. You'll definitely understand what's going on.
You can join both.
And I am going to pop out now because I haven't eaten yet today, and I'd like to have a snack before I get back on live.
Thanks, Brian. And then
Good seeing you,
if you're
Nick.
watching this show and stay
Likewise.
on it, then you'll automatically be sent to Brian's channel right afterwards. What else happened yesterday, Nick, that you thought was a big deal? What was the biggest thing you've heard?
So, actually, I think it's something that kind of has been quiet. I know all the attention is on these humanoid videos, the Secretary of Transportation going to Tesla, these interviews with Elon, but I'm here to tell you that was not the biggest news that broke. There's actually bigger news.
The economy.
Do you know what it is?
The
No.
Moody's downgrade.
Nope.
That's nothing. That's a nothing, bro.
No.
I don't know.
The biggest news is while everyone says Tesla's behind on autonomy and that they are lagging at Waymo's leader and all that, Tesla is essentially ready to launch FSD in yet another continent.
Australia?
So, yep. So now we'll have Australia. We'll have obviously North America. We'll have Europe soon. We've got Asia, obviously. So they are just literally scaling everywhere. And it's happening before everyone's eyes, but nobody's really giving it, I think, the attention that it deserves. This is a big deal. You know what I'm saying, though. It's not capturing headlines, you know, but here we are. Name me another company that's in all these different markets ready to go, just pending regulations or regulators. I think that's really big news.
Yeah, the Tesla country manager for Australia came out and he said that there's nothing stopping as a roadblocks to release FSD supervised in Australia. And of course, you had last week Tesla drop a video of Tesla FSD supervised in Australia, right-hand drive. And so the ability for Tesla to, like you're saying, go to first of all, a whole new continent, right? And then being right-hand drive and be able to work there without mapping, you know, it's pretty incredible. It means you can work anywhere. Because once you do the right-hand drives, then you have the left-hand drives, you got China, then you've got, you know, next thing to do is the last thing to hit is India. But
and I think we'll see that soon. I think we'll start seeing India soon.
Yeah. And so the question I think that people need to ask, and maybe you'll change your mind, is whether or not the countries and regulators will actually fight and refuse to adopt this, or they will chase and run after it. And I've always been saying that it's the opposite of what people are saying, that they're actually chasing and running after it, that the countries want to be first. And as they roll it out, it becomes harder and harder. As you see FSD in the US, China, Mexico, now it's being adopted. FSD is, freely running in China. How much longer can Europe last? Yes, they can surprise us. They are regulation. I get that. That's their leadership is regulation. So maybe they won't do it, but other countries, they're going to jump on it. Australia's going to do it. So
I think you're right. I think it's going to be a lot like Uber was when Uber was deploying first. Nowhere first, it was all this rhetoric about regulations will be the limiting factor, and it was in many ways. But once you start to get momentum, once you start to get ahead of steam, it becomes the opposite, where all of a sudden everyone's clamoring to get you into their market. I mean, and you already seen that. Look at Saudi Arabia, right? That was the other one I was thinking of. So we have Australia, Saudi Arabia says that it's going to come there. You should look; they're worldwide now with FSD. This time last year,
is that crazy?
We would not have guessed that. We would have guessed maybe we'd be in one European country, maybe.
Yeah.
China would have been the last one on our list. We wouldn't have even thought about Saudi Arabia. Australia would be like, it's they drive on the opposite side of the road, so probably not that. It's probably optimistic. Now look at us.
Yeah, it happened so much faster than any of us thought, right? Remember just earlier this year, we were going, there's no way China's going to do it because China's very careful, right? You can't let a U.S. company have cameras in China, and then there's a China-U.S. war, and then all of a sudden it happened, surprised everybody. And then people said, no, it'll never show up in Europe. Now it is true. It is delayed in Europe. I think Tesla was hoping it would be there for the first half of this quarter, second quarter. Hasn't happened. And Elon did say, right, we're waiting for the regulatory approval. So that's true. That's been delayed. But there's all these signals and signs that FSD is like there's these different Netherlands, Paris, Sweden. That was the other one I was mentioning yesterday. That news came out that there's FSD was applied to, not yet approved, but applied to be there. So all these movements are happening in Europe. And then, so you're right. This is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So how important is it that full self-driving is approved first before you can do RoboTaxi, right? Like how many months would you need to have FSD approved in your city before they would roll out RoboTaxi? I mean, it probably doesn't matter. RoboTaxi is going to be a slower rollout, right?
I don't think
maybe we'd be surprised
really
next
matters.
year we'll be going, because
I don't think it matters. No, I just think once FSD is approved, then you can immediately start going into test RoboTaxis. Like you don't have to wait. You don't need
I see what you're saying. I do think that it is basically once you prove that in one market, it's like what Elon's saying. It's slow, and then it just be boom.
Yeah.
That's how it's going to happen.
Exactly.
Everybody will demand it. So this is great. Thank you so much, Nick. I appreciate this. I'm going to drop off, and then we will. I'm going to start another live stream in 5 minutes with Dr. Scott Walter about the major drops of Optimus Bot and Figure and other robot news that just dropped this morning. Thanks, everybody. Bye all.